Hi.
Where's your cowboy hat?
You want me to wear it?
No, I just figured you were one with it now. I saw the picture that you just posted this past weekend when you were in Denver with the cowboy hat, and I'm like, oh my gosh, he's taking it cross country now.
Oh man.
We'll kick off with the 3 questions I ask every single podcast guest. All right, so these are the 3 questions I ask every single guest, which are, well, it's hello, hi, who are you, how do we know each other, and where can people find you online?
Well, my name is Alex, and the way that we met was actually at WealthCon. That was my first WealthCon ever. And people can find me on Instagram, Alex Kamenetsky. Just one word.
Yeah, and if you can't spell Kamenetsky, did I say that correctly? Kamenetsky. If you can't spell that, don't worry about it, because I'm going to link it in the show notes. So you can go ahead and click this episode on whatever platform you're listening to, and then you can find him and just click away, and your Instagram will be right there. Kamenetsky, what type of last name is that?
So I'm Russian.
Why did I think it might be Polish?
So my last name is actually Polish, but I'm Russian.
Okay, so family history. So you have a Polish last name, and you're Russian, as in you were, like, born in Russia?
So I'm first generation Russian. I was born in San Francisco. Everyone else in my family is from Russia.
Oh, okay. I dated a European guy. He was from Germany, and Americans will say, like, they'll claim, they'll be like, "Oh, you're German, I'm German," and then he would start speaking. Oh, he'd be like, "Das Book in Deutsch," or however you say that in German, and then they go, "Oh, not that kind of German, not German German." I'm like, American, and he's like, do you know anything about German culture? Do you know anything about the country? But you're just claiming to be German. He would get so frustrated. And it wasn't until that experience that I realized, oh my gosh, we Americans cling to these like nationalities. And then we know nothing about the nation. We can't even name the capital. And we're like, oh yeah, I'm English, I'm German, I'm Irish, I'm this, I'm that. It's like, if you say so. So like, how Russian are you?
I would say I'm more American than Russian. I'm a Russian American.
Okay, I love studying languages. I only know 4 words in Russian, but I've been told that if I ever go to Russia, I only need these 4 words and I'll be fine.
What words are they?
Привет, спасибо, vodka, and sex.
That's great.
Have you been to Russia before?
I speak Russian fluently, and I haven't been to Russia.
Oh my gosh, what does привет mean? It means hello, yeah?
Hello.
And then спасибо, am I saying that correctly?
Spasiba.
Spasiba. I thought it was spasiba. Spasiba. I think of it as spicy boy. Spicy boy. Spasiba. That means thank you.
Exactly.
And then vodka.
Which you know the meaning.
But I didn't say vodka, okay? I'm saying I'm adding my Russian accent. Vodka. Did I say that nicely or no?
Yeah, you got it.
And then we all know what sex is. Look, all you need to know is vodka and sex. I will just let you know that's the same in every language. Vodka and sex is the same in every language. But I am so okay. And what is your background? Like what is your crazy story? I want to hear it now.
Yeah, so where do I start? So I have been sober for 6 years now, right? This all started from when I was a kid. So I started doing drugs at a really young age. And so it all started with weed when I was probably like 12 or 13. So I just thought it was okay to smoke weed as a kid. And then I started smoking cigarettes the same age. So I got bronchitis when I was a kid because of cigarettes, and the doctor gave me cough syrup, and I started taking this cough syrup. I thought it was so amazing. I was like, wow, this is the key to life. So I wasn't really sure. So I started taking that, and I just like kept telling my dad to give me a refill, and he was like, what's going on here? And then no more refills after a while. And then things just kind of progressed and got into a lot crazier things. So like when I was in high school, that's like when the really heavy drugs started. And so I dabbled in a bunch of different drugs. I ended up doing a ton of meth and heroin and stuff like that. So after a couple years of doing this, I ended up losing everything. and I actually was homeless for about 3 years in San Francisco. So that's kind of fast forward, but
Yeah.
yeah, essentially I did a ton of bad things in my life, and then I got sober, and so now I'm 6 years sober. Fast forward.
Wow. Well, and I guess we should really emphasize, because I have a lot of questions. I'm going to ask you some things about this. I'm really excited because we're totally winging it. But a couple things. So, going back to how we met, just so to kind of set the stage here of who you are and how incredible you are and why I wanted to invite you on this podcast, is that you are doing some really innovative stuff in the real estate world. And that's what we were going to talk about, right? We were going to talk about Subtos and Pace Morby and all these other amazing things that you're doing in the real estate space, which is, I would argue, almost like a creative financing side of making money. Is that a fair assessment of saying it? It's creative. It's what you're
Absolutely.
doing.
Exactly.
And I don't fully understand subject twos, but maybe we'll talk about that at the end. But you are not only clearly successful today, which is what this podcast is about, is success, but it's kind of talking about building this success. And so what I'm really liking about this so far is I don't know if you've heard this before, but I would be completely shocked. I am completely shocked to hear that you used to be an addict. I say this with as little judgment as possible, is that a lot of times I can tell when someone is in recovery. I feel that I can tell when they're in recovery. There are different tells, and it doesn't seem that you have those tells. Is part of that because you went through recovery at a younger age, so you were able to maybe build a new life versus someone who goes through recovery in their 30s and 40s? Is maybe that it? Have you heard that before at all?
Well, I feel like I'm definitely lucky to go through all that at a younger age. So I got sober when I was 23, right? So I think that gave me a big advantage compared to if I was like 35 or 40, then it's a lot harder to build your life again.
Yeah. And I want to get back. So I don't know if you're aware of my background, but my W-2, which for anybody who doesn't know what that means, W-2 is what entrepreneurs refer to their corporate job. So that job where you're getting a consistent paycheck, which both you and I are not currently doing. You don't have a W-2 right now, right? Yeah.
No.
We're both 1099 fools. And so what that means is that my W-2 is where I've made most of my money, and my background is in alcohol marketing. And I wrote this book recently, and I published it because I think I think a lot of us are having the wrong conversations about alcohol. And what I find really interesting is in the alcohol industry, we don't talk about underage drinking at all. Like, because it's illegal, it's like he who shall not be named. We don't appeal to minors. We don't try to appeal to minors. It's our responsibility. Like, we take that responsibility very seriously because we'll get really big fines, like $100,000 fines if we were to be caught, ever targeting a minor, for every single minor targeted. So that could destroy a business. It's very, very grave. And yet, because we don't talk about that, you don't really see a lot of people talking about this idea of alcohol as a gateway drug, drinking alcohol before the age of 21. That's not something I've ever been able to talk about. But of course, I was a teenager. I saw what kids did. Do you think alcohol is a gateway drug, or do you think that it was this pharmaceutical that kind of, like, which came first? Because you mentioned the alcohol first, and then you mentioned the injury or the bronchitis. But like, which would you say kind of came first?
Well, alcohol never really was something that I really liked that much. I tried alcohol when I was super young. I don't know, maybe like 5 or 6 for the first time, and I just didn't like it. Like, it tasted horrible, and because everyone in my family, they were like, it's a normal thing to do is to drink. So I tried it, and I was like, oh, this is disgusting. And so I never really liked alcohol that much. It was more the drugs.
Yeah, the marijuana. I can really relate what you said about the bronchitis. So I got my first Vicodin prescription when I was 14 or 15 years old. I had a medical condition that, again, I talked about in my book, so I won't get too deeply into that. But they were giving me at this time, because I'm older than you are, they were giving me 100 pills at a time of Vicodin. And by the grace of God, I hated it. I hated it. And I remember my mom saying, you have to take this because if you don't manage your pain, that's what's making you sicker. I mean, I was dealing with severe pain and blood clots and all these things. And so the Vicodin helped, but it made me feel, I just remember sitting in class feeling what I now know as an adult, feeling weird, but really it was because I was high. Like I was high in class, stoned out of my mind, really. And yet it was perfectly fine. Like my teachers knew that I had to take my Vicodin at lunchtime. Like it wasn't a secret. And I say by the grace of God, I wasn't addicted because later on in my adulthood, um, I I don't remember if I found the medicine. I don't remember what it was, but I started using Vicodin as a way to go to sleep because I was like struggling with sleeping. And it started off with a half pill. Then after a couple months, I needed a full pill for it to put me to sleep. And then I remember when I needed that pill and a half because one pill wasn't doing it. And if I didn't take that one and a half, I was like, one, I'm going to run out of this stuff way faster. And then two, holy shit, this is how addiction happens. It's not just that you like it and you get high and you want to stay high. It's if I don't take this, I'm about to get sick. And I realized I had a physical dependency. We're talking about a pill and a half. That's nothing. And some people are taking 30 pills a day. But it took me like 2 weeks to get off of that. Like I had to wean myself off. And it's only 2 weeks, a very small taste of addiction. But I thought to myself, holy crap, they were giving me this stuff when I was a kid. Like and there was no warning, there was no discussion, there was nothing with my parents of like, hey, you might want to watch out for this, or we're gonna. I mean, they're giving me 100 pills at a time, and I know that we've regulated that a bit, but I can't. I don't know. What do you have any thoughts on that about the correlation between pharmaceuticals and drug abuse? Like, is that the story you might know from other people? Is your story kind of typical on that
I
front?
think pretty similar, right? Like I actually have something similar happen. I don't know what age I was. I would think like third or fourth grade. So they started me on Adderall and like Ritalin and all this like these because they're like, oh, you can't concentrate, you have ADD, ADHD, all these things. So they started me on these drugs and it made it way worse. Like I wouldn't eat, and it just like how I look at it, it's like legal meth, right? So maybe that's another reason why I like meth when I was later on in life. So I think that's all correlated, but it's just awful that they just give these drugs to kids and they just think it's okay.
Yeah, and I know there was this vaccine they were shoving down our throats, and they only lasted for like 2-3 years. They were shoving it down our throats, girls. The HPV, it was like one less commercial. It was like one less girl with HPV. They shoved these vaccines down our throats. They made us all sick, and then turns out it causes cervical cancer. And I'm like, oh, and so they don't give that anymore. So we were like any woman who's my age, around 33, anyone around 33 to 37, like that age range, like we were the test dummies. And then they went, oh, we need to reel this in. It turns out there are some side effects. That's where I get really hesitant. When you look back at your recovery, were you trying to heal a pain? Like, is there something that you can look at and go, I was trying to heal or escape, or were you truly just experimenting for the sake of experimenting?
So in the beginning, I was like trying to fill a void that I don't really know how to explain to this day. Like it was like something that was missing in my life. And then when I took these opiates and just other drugs, like made it so everything was fine. So like I
Yeah.
still to this day don't really know the exact like how to explain that feeling, but I was just like trying to fill the void and just to feel better. And it was like a missing piece to a puzzle. That was like the last piece to make the puzzle complete. That's how I looked at it, and I just felt like it was just like the answer to life.
But then how were you able to pull away from it if you have that missing piece? I believe we're all made with a missing piece, by the way, because I'm a creationist, so I believe that we were made by a higher power, and I believe that part of when we're made, the higher power creates a void in us, so we crave him. God, talking about God, right? Not to get too hippy dippy here, But so I believe that we all naturally have a void because we crave him. And it is a hole that we will try to fill with drugs, money, sex, porn, fancy cars, lifestyle. And that's why you see wealthy people self-destruct, because we realize when we make millions of dollars, oh, that hole is still empty, because I believe it's God that we're craving. Is that kind of what you might be talking about? Like an existential point of like, there is a void. Like, have you filled whatever that void might be today?
I think I have, yeah. I mean, just when with sobriety and just like being able to live life without that stuff, life is great, right? So I don't really need, I mean, I do like things that are naturally high, like I go snowboarding and just like other things like that. That's like, that really moves the needle for me, right? But now I don't need to do any of these drugs or like anything that gets me out of myself.
Well, and so do you consume, and there's no judgment here, but do you drink alcohol at all?
No, I
Nothing.
do absolutely nothing. Yeah, no weed,
Wow.
no alcohol. Yeah, nothing.
Yeah. So I dated a man who was very successful, and he ended up using drugs because, and I hate to overgeneralize, but there is this a little bit of a lifestyle with making money that comes with this work hard, play really hard. I worked my ass off. I earned it. I'm going to party lifestyle. And you're in the phase of building tremendous wealth. I know it. You're very successful, but just even getting more. Like, do you see that at all? Is that something that you've noticed or that you've found that you've had to avoid? Does it affect your ability to do a business deal? Like, have you seen how that might impact that side of it? This idea of like using and then having business negotiations?
I mean, for me, if I look at it, I don't pay attention to what other people are doing, right? If they're going to be doing all these types of drugs, like to me, it doesn't matter. They can do whatever they want to do. I just know for myself, I can't use nicotine, I can't use drugs, none of this stuff. It's all in the same category for me. If I take it in my head, I've just ingrained myself and I just know if I take any of these things and whatever substance it is, it's poison, and then I die. So I just don't do it. That's
Wow.
just how I've like changed my brain to think. So it's just not an option for me. I don't care if people drink around me or if people do whatever. I really don't mind it. Like I just know for myself that's not something I do anymore, and that's not something I affiliate myself with.
Yeah. Do you ever feel embarrassed to identify as sober?
You know, I used to, right? People are like, "Wow, you don't drink," and then I have to get into it and explain it to them. But at this point, if they don't like it, I mean, that's up to them. So if they can choose to talk to me or not, or choose to be my friend, I really don't care. I just know what's right for me, right? At the end of the day. So I
Yeah.
used to be really shy about it and be like, oh gosh, what are people going to think? Now I'm like, I don't care. Like, it
I
doesn't
love
matter.
Well, and I will say a couple things because I've gotten a taste of it because I'm all about sober cleanses. So I try to do 2 to 3 sober cleanses a year just to make sure that I just try to stay on top and not succumb to addiction. I try to be really cognizant about what I'm putting in my body and why. And alcohol by far is my favorite drug. And so because I know that, I'm like, all right, Ella, let's just make sure that we're always committed to really taking a full break, not, oh, I only drink on the weekends. I think the moment you say I only drink on blank, then I'm already getting a little nervous. So I'm like, okay, let's just take 30 days off, 15 days off, whatever it is, but just make sure we're always doing cleanses. And in those times when I'm not drinking, I've had a lot of people ask why. Well, why? Like it's like this, it's like they can't handle that I'm not participating in something, even though I have a drink in my hand. So I'm participating in the social ritual of putting liquid in my mouth. But, and I've learned through a friend to say, if someone asks, like, why, then you can ask them, why do you ask? Because it puts the question back on them so they can kind of understand what their curiosity is. In my industry, if someone doesn't want to drink, you're just like, oh, okay, totally respect that. We have a sober option, and we're like, I mean it. They're really, for me, wasn't pressure to drink in that way. I knew plenty of sober people who I worked with, ironically. But in the real world, I've struggled with that more, even with my sobriety cleanse. And maybe part of it is because I'm a woman, that like men think you're easier. I'm easier to put up with if I have a couple cocktails in me. I don't know. But I have had that pressure of, well, why not? Come on, just have one. You're so boring. Come on. Right. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it feels like a taste again, like where I say, I don't fully understand addiction and recovery and sobriety. But then when I get these moments of discomfort, I'm like, oh, wow, like there's, you have to face that. And I love what you said. Just love who you are, and the people who care will not matter and the people who matter will not care. And so I think that that's really beautiful, but it must have taken some work for you to get to that point and have that type of confidence, right?
Yeah, it definitely took a lot of work to get to this place, right? I've been to multiple rehabs before, and the way that I actually got sober this time around was I went to Israel for 10 months. So I went to a program there. So I needed to go somewhere really far away from America to realize, holy crap, I have an issue. I really need to solve this. And then when it hit me, I was like, okay, I'm just going to do whatever it takes. I'm going to try the sobriety thing. I knew that there was like a light on the other side. So I just went for it. And
So I've actually had a couple friends. Israel. Can I ask? I want to talk about Israel because I have a pretty shocking question. I just cracked myself up. I'm so sorry. This is really out there, but I have two questions. First of all, why Israel? Secondly, did it have anything to do with brain shock therapy?
so nothing to do with brain shock therapy. And why Israel is because my family and my brother, they found this treatment center there that would be really good. And they just did research on it, and it was Russian speaking. So it was perfect. It worked out really well.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. I'm like, what's the like? Why not Russia, where you might have more family, or is there a Rush? I don't know what the Russian-Israeli ties are. I guess my geopolitics are pretty weak. I don't fully know the relationship there. But was your experience overall positive?
Oh, absolutely.
Really? How I've Israel's top on my list. I've been wanting to go there because I
Oh,
want to visit Jerusalem so badly. Yeah.
so
D
beautiful. I highly recommend
yeah, and the women are beautiful.
that too.
The women are beautiful. The women are beautiful everywhere, but women in Israel are gorgeous. Okay. So have you heard of the electroshock therapy in
I
Israel?
haven't.
Have you heard about
No.
that? Oh, well then maybe I shouldn't talk about it because I might I might be misspeaking here. Okay. And so was the program, why did you have to go all that way? Did they not have something similar in the United States?
I feel like in the United States, it just the structure isn't the same. And being so far away from the United States actually helped me a lot, right? Because if I escaped from there, what am I going to do? Like I'm stuck in Israel. So it was much better for me to go really far away and just be really isolated for a long period of time. And then actually, when I got all the drugs out of my system, me realizing, wow, okay, I can actually do this. Because in the
Wow.
United States, like you can just leave these rehab programs really easily and just go back to the same lifestyle, like just like that.
You know what? I think that what you just said is so poetic because I'm such a believer in meditation. And meditation is this way of unplugging from the world and unplugging from your mind and really getting away. And I think that we in general are not doing this on a daily basis or weekly basis, like truly getting away, getting back to center, figuring out who we fully are authentically, and then coming back into the world. And I think that if we all took time to get away, we could learn a lot more about how to be the best versions of ourselves. And I never thought of it in the context of rehab in the sense of like, yeah, if you can just hop over to your old buddies and homies 10, 20, 30 minutes away, a plane ticket away, a $50 plane ticket away, then of course, this idea that you need to truly detach to be reborn is I really that is a really great testament into recovery over abroad. I think that's beautiful. May I ask, was that expensive?
Yeah, it definitely was. My brother actually helped me with that. So it's like I feel like he truly like saved my life, which is amazing. So he actually found me in the streets of San Francisco and was like, "Hey, this is your chance. You can get new teeth. You can fix your life. You can try to be sober." I'm like, "Okay, you know what? Let's just try it." And so I'm just so glad that I did.
Oh my gosh. I have a couple of friends who have loved ones in the streets and they don't know where they are. They do not know where their brother, mother, sister are. And every time I pass someone in the street, every time, I just think you probably have a mother or a father or a sister or a brother who just wants to know where you are right now. They just want to see you. They just want to know that you're safe. Coming from San Francisco, which is arguably one of the worst areas for homelessness, you were homeless in San Francisco in the Bay Area, or was it somewhere else?
Yeah, in the Tenderloin. That's where I spent the majority of my time. I have a joke about it with my friend because he actually grew up there. Like he lived there as a kid, so we're from the Tendies.
Oh my God. He grew up homeless out there?
No, he grew up just like living there because you can still live
Oh,
there. Like there's people that have apartments and it's just like a crappy area, right? It's
okay.
just like where all like the people that do drugs and all the homeless hang out. It's only like a 6 by 6 block area, but it's just filled. It's like really bad now, and it was back then. Like I've been there in my sobriety, and it's literally as nothing has changed. It's crazy. It's
This
really sad. Like it's yeah.
So it's funny because you're in real estate. So I'm gonna make some connections here. First of all, do you, as a former Californian, as someone who's been in that particular space, because homelessness in California is a very hot topic. It has been a hot topic since I was born and out there. Homelessness has always been a concern, but it really came to an apex in 2020. Really after, some political movements and things like that. From your vantage point, do you have ideas of some solutions for homelessness in California, or we'll make it specific to the Tendies or San Francisco? Like, what is your vantage point? Because I have some ideas, and of course, politicians have all these ideas and stories, but what do you think could be a possible solution for people? Is it focusing on the homes and the housing, or focusing on the people?
I think if you give the people a chance to like get recovery, I think that would be able to help. I mean, my personal belief is most people that are homeless it is because of drugs. I think that most of them are like that. I know that sometimes people lose jobs and stuff, but I think the majority of the time, people just lose everything because of drugs. So I
Wow.
think if people had a chance to actually get recovery, I think that could help the homeless population and just the whole homeless problem in general.
Yeah. Well, and on the note of real estate, right? Because now it's really interesting, houselessness and affordable housing and, tax liens, which for anyone who might be unfamiliar, a tax lien is when you owe so much back taxes on your property that you lose your property and someone comes in and they buy your house for pennies on the dollar because they just have to pay your taxes for you. And then ultimately, through a lot of paperwork and legislation and waiting and all this, they own your house now because they paid your back taxes. That is one of the ways. I don't fully understand sub twos, but my understanding is that there is some type of funding happening for someone who maybe can't afford their house. Is that a correct situation?
Exactly. Yeah. So I'll explain what a sub two is. So I'll give you an example. A seller that bought their house in 2020, they are a veteran, right? They use their VA entitlement loan. So in this particular case, they have no equity because they put $0 down and the market isn't the best, right? So it takes some time to have equity. So in this particular case, they have to sell their house. They're moving, whatever the case may be, and they have to come out of pocket 20, 30,000 at closing, which they can't do because they're already in the position where they put $0 down. All they're able to afford is just their mortgage payment every single month. So that's where sub two is a perfect opportunity to first help them, and then we also get a really great deal on a house. So essentially, when we take over house subject two, that means that the deed will transfer over to us, but the debt will still stay in their name. So it actually benefits them because their credit is going to go up over time. So now we take ownership of the property at these really low interest rates, and then we also help the seller at the same time.
You're helping the seller by taking their house, but they keep the payment?
So we take the house, right? But the debt will stay in their name. It's either they can't pay their payments anymore, they're going to go in foreclosure, and subject to is a much better option than them filing bankruptcy and doing a short sale.
Okay. And when you say the debt is staying in their name, you're referring to the mortgage.
The mortgage, yes. So the mortgage will still stay in their name, but we're responsible for it. So we're making the payments on their behalf, but we're the owners.
It just clicked. I get it. I get what you're saying. Okay. But where do they live?
Well, they have to find somewhere else to live. They can't stay in that house.
Okay.
So essentially, subject to is like a backup option. It's either for people that are going to go in foreclosure or going to file bankruptcy. It's never a first thing. It's always, hey, we can't sell the house. We don't know what to do. Let's do subject to.
So some might say, and this sounds a little similar to tax liens, so I have an answer, but I'm going to ask it just to clarify, because this does sound very similar to tax liens. And I would imagine that you could actually search tax records to identify people who would be interested in subject to. That would be my guess. How are you finding people that can't pay their mortgage?
It's mostly just on-market deals from realtors or other wholesalers will bring us deals, or we'll source our own from our virtual assistants. So we just look for houses that have been on the market for a long time with low equity. We look for newer builds, stuff that's like 2018 and above. That's what we prefer. We don't like to buy older houses.
Got it. Okay. And then, so I'm thinking of, I had a coin collection in 2008. So 2008, the market crashed, and I had this awesome coin collection of quarters. And long story short, I ended up using the quarters like regular 25-cent quarters because money got really tight. I was in college. I was embarrassed. I didn't want to ask my parents for money. Not that they had it to give me anyway, but to pay for my gas and put gas in my tank, I like cashed in these quarters at face value. So 25 cents. And which is disappointing because they're only worth the collection within the collection. So let's say hypothetically I had held on to those coins and they would be worth in 50 years $200 a pop, or whatever. But because I was tight on cash, I just took them at face value. Is that kind of similar? Like people are purchasing homes hoping that it'll grow, but since they can't afford to, like they're sitting on something that they can't afford. Like I had no money, I just had these coins. So then I'm using these coins at face value because people were willing to take that as payment. And I'm literally at the gas station counting one quarter by one quarter. And I just thought, I never want to feel this broke again. I never want to feel and embarrassed as the line is like gathering behind me because I'm counting every single dollar. 1, 2, 3, 4, $1 and just paying my gas with all these quarters I had. And gas was like $6. When people complain about gas prices, I'm like, do you guys not remember in 2008 when gas was freaking $5, $6? Does nobody remember that? Or am I the only old soul here? Y'all, it was really, or were you not paying for gas back then because your parents were paying for it, so you didn't know? But like, this is nothing new. I'm also in Texas where gas is $2.40. So if you guys want to move here, definitely check it out. But so is that kind of a fair comparison, the quarters to the home? Like, I can't afford, like, I need to live, I need money. So yeah, just flip this for what it is.
Yeah, that's a good analogy, right? You couldn't have said it better, right? It's just people that are in a bad circumstance that they're like, hey, if I wait a year or two, I'll be okay, but I can't wait. I need to get rid of it now. So that's why we can give them the solution.
Yeah, and I would say the guy at the gas station who's taking my quarters, he's not a bad guy. He's giving me gas. He's giving me a way to go to my job so I can make money. So he's not a bad guy in this situation. But I think sometimes with money and people who are hard up, it's easy to look like, well, okay, you're taking advantage of someone who's hard up. Like you're taking advantage of them during a time where they're the most desperate. Like that's a more desperate situation. And I like where you're kind of saying, no, we're giving them an opportunity to. I still don't understand the debt part though. Oh,
So
you're making the mortgage for them.
yeah, we make the mortgage payment every single month for them.
Got it. Okay. Got it. Okay. So they kind of get to start from scratch a little bit. Is this legal? Because it doesn't sound legal.
100% legal. I wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't.
I figured, but I just had to ask because I feel like the government would be like, no, 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 no. We want. I just feel like the government, because that's typically who's involved with the taxes and even sometimes the mortgage, right? If we're talking about a VA loan, especially, I feel like the government would want to find a way to get more money from you and not alleviate that person. Like,
I mean,
are there people trying to get rid of Subject 2? Are there like lawmakers who are trying to make it difficult?
yeah, a lot of brokers are not allowing Subject 2 now. I mean, I think eventually it's not going to be allowed in most places, but I mean, for now it works, so that's what we're doing.
I love it. Wow, wow, West. And the fact that you're already anticipating, I mean, look, let's be real. Anytime there's a way for people to make really good money, the government, policymakers, politicians, it doesn't matter left, right, blue, red, whatever, someone's going to find a way to go, no, 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 we can't let people make money like this. We need a piece of the pie. We need to make it illegal, just like alcohol. We're going to make it illegal so that way when we make it legal in our own little way, we're getting a piece of the pie. They're not getting all the money. I mean, we see that over and over again. And that makes me sound like a total conspiracy theorist, but we see that a lot. Pharmaceuticals, it's perfect. It's like, no, 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 no. These drugs are illegal unless you buy it the way we've now deemed because we're getting a significant amount of tax dollars from it, right? And so when you're cutting out the government on that side of like, okay, we're going to transfer this, that's really interesting. And then can you do it by yourself or do you need a team? Like I'm imagining you need a team to find these homes.
Yeah, I don't think you can do it by yourself.
Subject to.
Or just in general, just to do real estate, I think you definitely need a team. You can do it by yourself. It's just a lot harder, right? Because there's so many different things that need to be done in a Subject to transaction and just like finding deals, there's so many moving parts that without a team, it's very difficult to do it.
Where are you guys operating?
Well, we have a couple homes in California. We try not to really buy houses there. And then we have some in Nevada, Arizona, Texas, Florida. Those are the main ones that we like.
So you like the red states. I noticed that. We don't like that blue state as much. I hear you. Look, I moved from California to Texas. I'm not judging. And as far as investors, so like if anyone was listening to this, let's say someone like me, okay? So here I am, I'm a girl, just a girl. I've been working and I have a couple pennies saved, not a lot of money, and I'm not really interested in owning my own home because I'm a single female who likes the amenities of an apartment. And yet I keep dealing with this narrative of you don't own, you're not investing, you're not set for financial success, blah, 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 blah. So let's say I have like a couple dollars. How would I be able to partner with you? Let's say I have $30,000, right? So like a chunk of change, not enough to buy a whole house, but a chunk of change to do something with, or we can make it around 50 if that makes you feel better. Let's say I have a chunk of change I've been saving. It's in the bank, making a whole 0.0002% APY. Where might I be able to partner with you, if at all, hypothetically?
Yeah, the way that you'd be able to partner with us, it'd be something called a private money loan. So you could become a private money lender. So we use private money lenders to acquire properties. So let's just say you gave us a 50,000, we would give you a percentage every single month. Or if you prefer a flat fee at the end, we can do that too. So all of our lenders give us money from 6 to 12 months, and then they're secured by the property. So if we were ever to default, they would just take back the property. And these deals are usually under 3% interest rates. So they're phenomenal deals. Obviously, we would never want to default, but that's how the lender's protected. And the lender just gets passive income every single month, and they don't have to do anything.
All right, I'm going to say this as a dumb down. Now, $50,000, let's say that you're doing what you're doing. Let's just say hypothetically, we'll do a 10% return since that's an easy number. So you're doing 500 a month, right? Like
Yep.
we'll say it's a 10%. Oh, well, 500 a month? No, it would be.
So we do annualized, so interest only payments.
Yeah, I know. And I know I was saying that, I'm saying that wrong. So 10%, oh gosh, this is where 12 months of the year.
So $416 a month is
Okay,
what it would come.
416. Yes. Okay. So not 500. Yeah, because okay. So hypothetically, I give you $50,000 and then you're going to pay me $400 a month, right? Which I will do whatever with that money, but then I gave you 50,000. But
Right.
then go
Yeah,
ahead.
at the end of it, at the end of the 6 months, for example, if you choose to do 6 months or 12 months, you would get your whole lump sum back. So in the meantime, you would get interest only payments every month. Or if you're like, hey, I just want a flat fee regardless of how long you had it, we've done that too in the past.
Mm-hmm. Now, where I want to make this like for people who are listening, because a lot of times when we're looking at our money in a bank account, right? So it's like if I gave you that $50,000, now it's a zero in my bank account. But quite frankly, it's a zero in your bank account anyway until you pull it, right? So the interest that you're making in the bank account, it feels like money you have because you're looking at it in an account. But ultimately, I could just put the $50,000 on an Excel spreadsheet and say Alex's bank, new Bank of Alex that I moved my money over to, and you're paying me 10, 20 times more than these banks. And while I can't pull out cash the way I might be able to, I know that I don't plan on pulling out cash in the next 6 months. And so now I've made significantly more money by giving you the money instead of having it sit in the bank. And when I get my $50,000 back, if it makes me feel better, I can just put it back into the bank. Right?
Exactly. Yep.
My next question is, as we start to close this out, what do you do with that money? I'm confused about that. So like, okay, I've given you this money and then you're paying me a little bit. What are you using the money for?
So all the money that we're using is to close the deal. So we call it the entry fee. So the total, let's just say it is 50,000, which that's pretty typical for a deal. That's going to pay for the agent commissions. That's going to pay for the seller, the money that we give to the seller, and just all the fees associated like marketing, holding costs. We do like to raise a little bit extra for the mortgages until we find the new buyer. So in a nutshell, what we do is once we acquire these properties, we take it over subject to, and then we do something called a wraparound mortgage. So essentially, we owner finance somebody else that can't qualify the traditional way.
Wow. So you're helping another person who can't necessarily afford their home.
Exactly.
Well, what if I want to buy one of these homes? How could I find you?
We have a ton available. So our company is called Homester. It's homester.com. We have all of our inventory there. You can find us on Instagram and on Facebook as well.
I love that. Okay. Well, I'm going to link that in the show notes as well for anybody. I mean, ultimately one of the things that I want to do with this podcast, and I'm so grateful you came on and shared so much of your life and background and story. I have such a newfound respect and love for you, Alex. But one of the reasons why I built this podcast is because one, I think that financial success is very elusive for a lot of people. And there are so many of us who feel like we have to stay stuck in whatever we were given by our parents. Or we have to be stuck, even for friends I have that have money, that come from money, they feel stuck because they can't survive without their parents and all of these, like, the money just becomes so elusive for a lot of people. And I create a space where people can start having financial conversations and like-minded people can come together and say, hey, I like what you're doing. This sounds good to me. I want to work with you. But I also know, just like we were talking about earlier with, your battle with recovering and stepping away from drugs and really owning who you are and being comfortable fully in your skin, that in those dark moments that you had, all the money in the bank would not have fixed it. It would have to be you deciding to get sober. Like, throwing money at a problem doesn't always fix a problem. We know that. And so success doesn't just mean financial success and having a bunch of zeros in your bank account. It also means health and happiness, and wealth is so beyond the financial, although the financial is really important. And this is why I created this Ceph philosophy, this idea of like the multi-dimensional, the multifaceted ways that we can build success. Ceph stands for spiritual, emotional, financial, and physical. So there are times in our lives where we're making a lot of money, but we're eating like shit, and our heart rate is out of control. So our physical is just in the tank. Or we're not making a lot of money, but we get to live at home with our parents and enjoy time with them. When you look at your current situation, like where do you feel the strongest? Do you feel the strongest spiritually, emotionally, financially, physically? And then next question would be, where do you hope to grow a little bit more?
So I've done a lot of work internally, and I'm actually still continuing that every day. I'm doing a lot of meditation, like you mentioned. So I'm slowly getting into that more and more. Where I want to grow, I just want to keep growing that, right? I want to be better spiritually, mentally, and health-wise. So I've been eating a lot better, just been a lot better of a person in general. And it's just been super fun. I mean, life is so amazing now. It's like,
It
it's
is.
great.
You are glowing. You look amazing. You are so wonderful and inspiring, and I really love following you on Instagram because anytime I don't know what it is. Every time I see you posting like you're doing something, I am on my couch, like with my belly in my hand, like eating chips or something. I'm like, wow, I'm really doing nothing with my life right now because as I'm taking a break to rest, Alex is out here hustling. And so it's really inspiring to watch your story and just to see all the things that you've been doing, especially since we met in October. I mean, you have really blown up. It's awesome.
Well, I really appreciate it.
Yes, I'm so grateful. Oh, and one question I meant to ask, I should have asked this before the last question, but oh well. Um, for anybody who might be struggling, whether internally or they know someone who's struggling, and for you are such a beacon of hope. You are light. Like your journey shows us that we can break free from our difficult, painful, traumatic past. Can you offer any advice or insight into anybody who is currently just desperate and struggling and needs that beacon of hope and needs that reminder, or for someone who has a loved one, a family member that is going through it right now?
I mean, from someone that has been to jail, been arrested, been homeless, like I've had more than a handful of overdoses before. Like if I can do it, anybody else can do it. You just have to set your mind to it and just say, hey, let me give this a shot. And if it doesn't work out, I can always go back to my old life. That's what I told myself. And it worked. You just have to try it. And it's definitely possible. The longer that you're in addiction, the worse it gets. So if you at least give yourself a chance, like you don't know how life is on the other side. Like when I was outside sleeping in the rain and all this just madness, I never thought this life could be possible, but it really is. So you just have to give yourself a chance and just try it.
I really like that. Like almost you could die another day. You could do drugs another day. Like if you don't like sobriety, you could always do drugs another day, but just give sobriety a chance today. I love that. And I'm so grateful that you shared yourself.
No, thank you for having me. I'm super grateful for this.
Thank you for listening in to Eavesdrop with Ella. If today's episode inspired you, please subscribe, rate, or review Eavesdrop with Ella on your favorite podcast platform. While you're at it, you should also send this episode to a friend so we can connect with more eavesdroppers just like you. If you'd like to be a guest, you can visit ellaparlor.com to learn more. Until next time, this is Ella Parlor reminding you to stay resilient, stay abundant, and above all, stay balanced. Thank you for eavesdropping, and we'll catch you on the next episode.
You've been listening to Eavesdrop with Ella, a production of EP Consulting. Some of the products and services mentioned are paid promotions, and any advice should be confirmed with a qualified professional. Opinions and ideas are for entertainment purposes only and belong to EP Consulting. All rights reserved.